Hello again and welcome back to our course on PowerPoint 2013. In the previous section we looked at animation for the first time, and we looked at animating a couple of straightforward shapes using some of the basic types of animation in PowerPoint 2013. I'd like to do a very quick recap now and make a couple of small changes, and then we're going to look at animation more in the context of a presentation. Now you may recall that the animation pane on the right here gives us details of the existing animations. If I look at the second one, this was an animation of the big blue circle. Click on the drop down there and look at the effect options. What I'm going to do now is to speed up the animation to save us a little bit of time. I'm not going to have a delay of 3 seconds, we'll just have a delay of 1 second, and then I'm going to remove the repeat. And what I'm going to do now is to add an additional animation. Now I'm going to add an animation this time to small red circle. But in fact it will become a separate stage in the animation, and I'm going to make it a float out animation, so that's an exit animation. Now note that when I do that it becomes the last in the sequence, so I'm going to have oval 6 coming in, oval 7 shrink and grow, and then oval 6 floating out. So let's preview that. And that's the full animation. Now what I want to do is to look at that in the context of a presentation. So I'm going to go to slide 1 for this presentation, and I'm going to go into reading mode. So I'm on slide 1 in reading mode. Now if I go to the second slide, what do you think will happen? So go to slide 2. Nothing happens. You just see big blue circle. So why do you just see big blue circle? Well, although I've been testing that animation, the thing to remember is that for the first stage in the animation it was on click. So until I click, nothing will happen. So let me click, it doesn't matter where, just click, and in comes small red circle. And then big blue circle does grow and shrink, because it is set up to do that after the animation of small red circle. But note that small red circle doesn't now float out, because that's also been set up as an on-click animation. So again, if I click, then that goes out. So if you like, the process of manually invoking these animations is only really evident when you come to look at the slideshow itself. And one important aspect of this is that you need to plan how you want your animations to work. So let's suppose that I'm working on a presentation about circles, and really what I'm doing as I'm giving my presentation, and perhaps this is all written into my speaker notes, is to say something like, well, here is big blue circle all on its own, it's a very lonely circle, wouldn't it like a nice little red circle for a friend? And then at that point, saying for a friend, I click and in comes small red circle. I can then talk about the happy times that small red circle and big blue circle have together, and how big blue circle grows in partnership of small red circle. And then I can say, but of course, as with all stories, there's a very sad ending, and in the end small red circle goes away. I'm controlling that in this case with the mouse, and depending on the audience reaction I may find that to say those things takes more or less time, but the animations themselves are not timed, they are controlled in this case by clicking the mouse. Once you've built an animation sequence, it's not at all difficult to change it. So let's suppose that I decide in this case that I basically like my animation, but I really want to make blue appear at the beginning of the story as well. So all I need to do is select blue, go to the advanced animation group and click on add animation. Let's have blue appear let's say use random bars. We can see it appear like that. By default, new animations get added to the end of the sequence. It's quite straightforward once it's selected to use this pair of buttons here. There's an up button and a down button to move the animation to be earlier in the sequence. As you do that, PowerPoint 2013 changes the numbering sequence over here in the little rectangles. Let's just check that first animation where Big Blue appears. That's start on click, that's fine. I could check its settings if I wanted to. And then maybe I want Big Blue doing its shrink and grow to stay automatic, so the settings for that will stay on start after previous, and then red will exit. Maybe I'll have blue exit at the end as well. No, maybe I'll just leave blue there. Okay, let's go into reading mode and see how that works. Click once, in comes blue, start telling my story. Click again, in comes red. Blue gets happy when it sees red. Click again, red goes away, blue stays there. And then back into normal view. So there we are, I've developed my animation sequence. Now you're not restricted to animating simple shapes like circles. You can animate text boxes, images, clip art and so on in PowerPoint 2013. So what I want to do now is to show you animation of a piece of clip art, and in this particular piece of animation I'm also going to show you something called a motion path as well. So let's put another slide in. We'll have a new slide which is blank. Go to that blank slide, and what I'm going to do is to insert a piece of clip art. So I'm going to go to Insert Online Pictures and click there, and I'm going to search for a mouse, not the four-legged type, the computer type. There we are, that mouse there will do. Click, insert. Now let's change the size of that mouse, and I'm going to put it down in the bottom corner of this slide. Now let me click on the Animations tab and add an animation for this mouse. So click on Add Animation. Down at the bottom below the Exit Animations you have Motion Paths. There are some standard paths and then you have a custom path. We'll look at custom path in a moment. Let's start with a loop. So click on Loop and you can see the mouse do a little loop on the slide. Now you'll also see this little shape here with a selection rectangle around it. That shows the actual path, the locus of that loop. And if you wanted to change that loop to be bigger or smaller or a different direction, you can use the sizing handles on this little rectangle to reroute it. So for instance, let's suppose I make it a much bigger loop, more or less filling the slide. Note that the starting point for the mouse is the darker copy of the clip art and the grayed out version is the lighter copy. Now watch what happens if I do a preview. The mouse draws a great big double loop on the slide, and then as I said, you can still see this rectangle here with the locus of the loop in it, and you can customize that if you want to. So that's a pretty straightforward case of a motion path animation. I've got that mouse selected again, and what I want to do now is to choose a different animation. So I had loops before. I'm going to go for custom path this time. And with a custom path I can map out whatever route I like on the page. So starting there, I can go up to there, across to there, down to there, up to there. I can pretty much go anywhere I like really and finish up in the top left hand corner, say. Double click and it does that strange route all around. The other thing that I can do with this animation is that I can say what is the trigger for the animation going to be. Now the trigger could be a click of the picture itself, And one of the differences between that and the standard on click is that this will only perform the animation if I click specifically on that picture. So if I got, say, 3 or 4 bits of clip art on a slide and they each animated or did different things, then what would happen would depend on which of them I clicked on. Obviously, if you've only got one on click command, if you click, everything's going to react to it. But you can actually specify with the trigger that you have to click on that particular object. So let me just go into reading mode, reading view for this one. Watch what happens if I click specifically on the mouse. It does that strange route all around the slide. Watch what happens if I click not on the mouse. It ends my show because it's the last slide. So in that case, I've specifically said that the animation is triggered by clicking on that mouse. So in this section we've looked at some other types of animation, more on how to control animation with specific reference to controlling it in an actual presentation. There's one more particular topic to look at in relation to animation now, and that is to look at animation of smart art, and that's what we're going to do in the next section. So please join me for that.